anymore. Okay, fine. So I need to do things in this order. Okay, welcome. Does this work? No. Okay, welcome. Great. Announcements. So there is homework to be graded with card grader. The evaluations are due at 11 p.m. on Wednesday. So you have 2 days and a half roughly. Okay. I will be handing out homeworks 3 and 4 in short order, either tonight or tomorrow. I originally wanted to give a single video homework assignment, but then seeing how, there is always a tendency to postpone, and this will be a long video homework, I think it works better if I chop it into 2 pieces. Okay, so quite arbitrarily, I chopped it into 2 pieces, but I will be assigning both of them today or tomorrow, and then they will be due at 1 week distance, more or less, one from the other. Okay. This has the advantage that when you need to do the second installment, you can look at other people's solutions for the first installment if you need. Okay, so these 2 homeworks will be going out soon. That's about it. You can find all the code for today's class in the repository if you want to follow. The code is going to be in 2018 10 28. What day is it today? 29, I guess. Yes, so here I have the repository 29, and I just made a push a few, some half an hour ago, but there is not so much changed. Yes, there is a question.
There was a question on the outset about whether we should mark for equal to the fields coming up with forms that are anything other than the actual.
Yes, I think I specified in the homework, right, that those 2 fields are the fields to come out. Yes, so you can take off a point or so. I think every question is worth 2 points, right? So I think you can take off 1, and that's not too much, but you can, so that people know how to, yeah. Okay, so in today's class, I built the code in a way that I can go to each Git commit and have at some point the code I built. But I think that I don't want to switch all the time Git commits while presenting the material to you. It would be too disruptive, I think. So I'm going to go to a Git commit in which I did quite a number of things. But then I will comment selectively on the code, right? So what I want to do essentially is learn how to use JavaScript and Vue in order to implement widgets such as star ratings. Then there is another one that is the smiley face. I want to be able to get a list of people who like that particular post and these kind of things. I can tell you already what the homework will be, which will be, I think, a good motivation for you to pay attention to some particular aspects of the class. So we are building this blog, right? So today I tell you essentially how to implement star ratings and smiley and unsmiley face, smiley and frowny, actually smiley and mehi face for a particular post, so that you can either like it or you don't care it, nice straight face it. For a particular post, but then you are also able to actually go fetch the list of people who actually liked with a smiley face a particular post. Okay, these in general. So what I would like to do in the homework is this. I want you to build a similar widget for the thumbs up and down. Okay, I will describe it in detail. We built an approximation of it in non-JavaScript, but now I want you to build that in JavaScript for each post. That's one of the things. The other thing I want you to do is essentially allow in JavaScript to reply to a blog post and to visualize or fold back the list of replies. So if a post has replies, you should be able to click on a button, and when you click there, boom, you expand the list of replies, and you can add your own at the top. Okay, and then boom, you can fold it back. Okay, and then the third installment of the homework is that I would like you to implement the thumbs up and down that you implemented on any single post on each reply. And the fourth installment of the homework, I mean, don't worry, you have time and these are not huge, right, each one of them, but is that I would like you to be able to filter just the replies that did not receive a thumb down. Just pretending we're doing some moderation, right? The thumb down means it's horrible. And so you just want to display, you know, in a safe mode all the replies that were not thumb down by anybody. Okay? Now, this seems to be complicated, but it's not that much. It follows basically all the same mold of, you know, building an interaction that talks back to the server. And I think the only difference is that if you build an interaction for a post, there is a list of posts, and you know, that's it, the golden list of posts. But replies are instead associated with a particular post, right? They have the post ID, in fact, in the reply. And so when you need to fetch the list of reply to a post, you need to specify the post and get the list of things. And in preparation for that, precisely, I decided to display here the list of people who like the post. That's a sort of in embryo, a suggestion of the code you have to do. Because when you want to fetch the list of all the replies to a post, of course, the replies can contain text, and you know, you need to lay them out with more honor, so to say, you know, one below the other, and etc. But the idea is similar, actually, right? In both cases, you have a post, and you want to fetch all the information associated to a post by doing a database query, and then bring in all the results. So I gave you, you know, I think what are the stepping stones to the homework in order, and I will be commenting on them this week. Okay, and so that's going to be what we're going to do. The fear I have slightly is that if I continue to teach in 1 hour increments, as is the destiny for this year, I may be going a little bit faster. So it's up to you to tell me if you want me to spend more time on topics. Okay, so let me give you a demo of the site first. So when you are not logged in, well, all you see is a list of posts. I mean, I could make things in a far more intelligent way, and you see that I have some initial glitches. I think in some later class, if somebody asks, I will be happy to say how to eliminate the stupid glitches that we see while I'm refreshing the page, you see? So that I want to cover at some point, but let me not get bogged into that right now. And now I can log in. Once I log in, okay, I can see the posts. I can add a new post. Okay, and I see two kind of things. A star rating widget, you see, that I can modify, and if I decide on another rating, I can click on it, and then it stays, even if I refresh the page. And the other thing is this smiley face that, I wonder, maybe a little bit bigger is nicer. If I go over it, it shows me two kinds of information. It shows me who liked it. So it's like on Facebook. I try to do a poor man's implementation of what's, you know, the Facebook like thingy. And it also shows you the next state. So you see, now it's frowny, but it's frowny gray because it's not confirmed to be frowny. And if I click on it, it becomes frowny black because, you know, the solid color indicates that the action has, you know, been transmitted to the server, and now this is actually the setting. Okay, so I can toggle the state in this way. And there is two of me. There is look at ucc.edu and look at the ferro.org. The other me, which you need for debugging to do these kind of things, what you do is that you can either use multiple browsers. Firefox has an extension that I sometimes use, and it's well done, and it's called multiple Facebook. If you read the documentation, even for Chrome, you can have more than one Chrome profile, even though I don't like to do it so much because it's difficult to choose which one to launch. This multi-Firefox is this thing here. You can just install it, and when you click it, it asks you which Firefox to launch. And so you can keep like multiple identities there. The other quick and dirty way of doing it is to use incognito mode, which is like a separate browser. This lets you be somebody else. And so in this case, I'm going to be my other Luca, so that I have two people, right? It's more interesting, obviously, when you try to debug this code, right? So for example, here I say, you see, here it's smiley, but it doesn't tell me that anybody else liked it. But if I click here, okay, then, sorry, did I click or not? If I click here, sorry, when I go here, nothing happens. I decided I should be lazy. So this is a choice. When you land over that like thingy, should you fetch the results from the server every single time, or do you just fetch them once and then remember you have fetched them to avoid fetching them every time you hover? I opted here for the second solution just to reduce the server bandwidth. Okay, so this is not a feature of JavaScript being laggy. It's just that I decided not to do too many server calls, and this is a choice you can easily change in your code if you wish. Okay, and I haven't yet decided what to have you do on thumbs up and down. I haven't decided whether to, let you fetch the status in real time or not. Yeah, I feel like I'm a kind of patent lawyer when I design homework, and now if you click on these after that, you should go. It's like running a mental state machine. But so this is basically the idea, and I want to show you the implementation of this. Okay, so let's begin by the smiley face without list of likers. This is easiest place. Actually, let's begin by how I decided to fetch the list of posts. I needed to render all this side information, and I made a decision, and this is a decision that we make often. That is, I don't want to render the page by fetching a gazillion information at once in case you might be actually looking at it. Okay? I want to essentially be parsimonious when I start the page because I will be serving a lot of pages if I'm giving a successful site, and I don't want to spend all the time in complicated queries that nobody looks at the result. So when I do the query to serve this page, I do not actually fetch side information such as the list of all the people who liked every one of the posts. Likewise, when you build your page in which you can look at the replies, you should not fetch the reply to every post. You fetch them only if somebody expands the replies. Okay? You want to not ask for information that the person is not going to see because you want to essentially do it on demand, right? So that you do the minimum amount of total work on the host. And so also that, databases impose a particular penalty on transactions that are, on operations that are longer. Okay, because of course, because they're longer operations, they're not as broken up, and so they increase the latency of the system because it's harder to interleave them. So it's better to do things by bits and pieces as you need them, unless you need to really do a transaction that has consistency, right? It's like, yeah, I don't know how to make a very good comparison, but I hope you get some of the idea. And so here, I don't want to get the whole information about who did whatever on every post. That's too much information. I just want the information of what you did on those posts because that I need. So let me look at this initial method, okay, that I call here. So one of the things I commonly do when I write code, and I'm not saying I write in the best way, okay, but at least I tell you my particular style, or so that sort of works in many contexts. You see, the index page per se does not contain any result. So one of the tricks of the business is this. You do not build first a page in HTML that kind of contains the results and then update it via JavaScript. It's much easier to get information in a homogeneous way. So if you're going to fill a list of posts, it's easier to actually going to get them all in a JavaScript callback. So to serve an initially empty page, that's why you see that gabble at the beginning that I will teach you how to eliminate. But it's easier to serve an initially empty page and then populate it. So I always write a method. Sorry, now I wrote a lot of methods, so I have to go hunt for it. But it's called something like get posts. And this get posts method essentially calls home and get the list of posts. So let's look at it a second. I get a get post list URL. Okay, I explained you the other time that these things are defined in index at the top, right? I define the URL here. Okay. And then I don't do very much. I do just two things. When I get back the data, I assign the post list, and then I do a bit of processing. This processing essentially enriches my list. Suppose the list of posts may contain only some information, and I may want to add various flags that are useful in the rendering, in the visual rendering of the list. And so I add all those flags in a uniform step I call process this list. This essentially ensures that all the attributes of all these posts are all up to date. It's kind of easy, then every time I modify this list, I can call process posts, and this look, will make sure that everything is clean and polished. Okay, so that's a good thing. By the way, before it goes out of my mind, we concluded the last lecture with me giving you this complicated explanation that JavaScript really works in this very different way, right? That when I do this get, what you do after you get the data back is specified in a callback function. So if I were here to write another function, and we could do it, in fact, let me do it anyway. Console, like log, like I fired the get, which means in computer easy, you know, that I sent to the get statement, okay? And assume that here instead, like I process the posts, and as I say console log is the equivalent of the printf, right? I got my list. I don't know why, but I feel that I'm like a mafia man when I make this printf. Like I fired the get, I got my list. Yeah, the man is done. The swimming with the fishes, something like that. So if I now look at these, let me get the JavaScript console somewhere. Console, that's a good place. So if I do these, you see, I fired the get, and then I got my list. So essentially, these that happens after visually, no? This is executed immediately. And this is only done after you get the results. Okay? So just for you I'll leave it there, I guess, okay? There's no harm. Okay? Now, you may wonder, you know, why do they do things this way, and what's the big impact of this? Well, there are various impacts. One of the impacts is this. JavaScript essentially in a window has only one thread. And this thread never wants to wait on everything ever, okay? So the idea is that you send it running, and whenever you do something that needs to wait time, you don't have it wait. You simply specify what to do when the thing, when the product is ready. So what JavaScript does under the hood is essentially this. It starts this call home, and then it puts in a slot of this call home the function information about the function that will have to be run when the call comes back, as well as, you know, other values that may be needed for it to process. Okay, there is only one thread. Now, one of the interesting consequences is this. This really changed in the last maybe 20 years progressively in computer organization. So once upon a time, when they invented time-sharing computing systems or Linux, etc., the idea was, well, you know, you write every thread very simply, and you say, you know, now I set x to 1, I set y to 2, then I read from the put r is equal what I read from the file system of database, and then I use what is in R to assign it to Z, and etc., etc. Right? So you write essentially a flow of things to be done one after the other. And if one of those things happens to be a call to the network or to the disk system, etc., well, you don't care. You know, you just your thread is gonna go to sleep, right? Is gonna go to sleep on a IO resource. You did study this in operating systems, right? Or computer organization, right? So you essentially wait on that, and in the meantime, some other computer thread, some other one of the various active threads in your operating system, depending on the priority, is going to get their chance to run. And then, you know, when you get the interrupt back that the disk operation is ready, then you figure out what to run next. Eventually, you get to run, and with the result and process it, and yada yada. Great. Now, this works, obviously it works, right? That's the way many programming languages are done. But it carries a consequence that in time has become more important. Once upon a time, the speed gap between a CPU cache and the onboard memory was fairly small. So once upon a time, the CPUs had no cache, first of all. And if you go really long ago, okay? And then when they started to have it, maybe there was a factor of maybe 10 or 5. So, you know, if you had the data immediately, you could do the thing immediately. Otherwise, you sort of wasted 5 cycles or 10 cycles, but then you got the data and you could do something else in between, right? Nowadays, instead, the gap is much larger. I don't know it exactly because I'm not a computer architecture expert that keeps up to date all the time, but it's on the order of hundreds, right? If you do a cache miss, that's going to cost you 100 points, 100 instruction cycles that you could have done something else. Just wait for the main memory to give you back the data, okay? Now, the problem is this. When you change a process, when you switch from one process to the other, Conceptually, it's very easy, but practically, it's very expensive because what do you do when you switch from one process to the other? Okay, I don't remember all you do, but at least what you do is this: you change the program counter that now points to another place, you change the stack pointer that points to another place, and I'm not quite sure with the heap, but you may have some heap operation, etc., etc., and then you start doing entirely different stuff with a different stack, with a different everything. And so when you do that switch, you are going to have a huge amount of cache misses all at once, right? Because now you are working essentially in another region of memory. You're in a different process, you're running another region of memory. You're going to be slowed down for the first, I don't know how much, but tenths of a second or hundredths of a second by cache misses quite a lot, okay? And then you catch up in performance. But so if you do that all the time, it's not a very effective way of running, right? So your chunks cannot be too small. Instead, in JavaScript, the beauty of it is that you actually are always in the same process. You're just, there is the same thread that does a jack of all trades. Now, you still are going to have some cache misses because, you may be working on a data structure when you do something and then you switch to another one. But it's much more moderate, right? Because your stack for function calls is going to be the local variables and scoping is going to be the same, and many other things are going to be the same. Operating system tables that you use to access OS primitives, all that is going to stay. And so it's much more efficient. And so this is, by the way, one of the reasons for the success of Node.js, JavaScript on the server as server framework, which is something I'm not teaching you in this class. I'm using Python as server framework. But one of the beauties is that switching between threads is much easier, is much faster. So you can serve many more parallel requests in terms of routing them to backend resources. Okay, if all you have to do in your job as a web server is I get a request and then I figure out, I need that data from the database. In JavaScript, you could say, I need data from the database. Okay, I start in the same way that here, you dispatch get JSON, you could dispatch readDB or however it is called, right? And then you specify the function you run once the data from the DB is in. So you say, you give me a request, okay, I start it on the DB. It's like being a cook in a busy restaurant, right? Okay, I start your meeting this frying pan. In the meantime, how can I help you? So, I'm burgers here, I'm fries. And so you start by the same cook, right? So you don't have to do process switches. And so you are able to serve many more concurrent requests, up to tens of thousands in many cases. Okay, Python, by needing to use a thread with its own stack, etc., for every request, is able to serve fewer requests at the same time. Of course, this is not necessarily the bottleneck of a serving system. It may depend also on what kind of operations you do on the data. I mean, not all of your time is in the end is waiting for I/O, right? But I just want to point out that for systems that do very light CPU serving, but want to service a lot of concurrent requests, using JavaScript has this advantage. And this advantage is also there in the browser. It's very quick to manipulate a lot of concurrent interactions. So, there maybe at 50 times a second, a thread that refreshes a graph in a window that is showing you an animation. Then it's listening to where you're moving the mouse to follow it and do some other stuff. In the meantime, you may have, 20 JavaScript calls all waiting to come back and do something when they come back. And all this is really quite efficient. Okay, so this parenthesis is now closed. But any question on this before I go on? Now I want to show you how I actually serve this list of URLs. It will be useful for you for the homework as well. Questions up to this point? Yeah.
What's the day that we social things to talk about projects?
Yeah, I need to organize that. I've been overworldly busy this weekend with work, and so that's why I'm letting things slide a bit. I essentially focused on preparing all this class material for this weekend homework, but this week I'll need to get back and organize the projects. So it hasn't escaped me. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, so let me go in this method. Get post list. So there are two cases if you are not logged in or if you are logged in. If you're not logged in, you read it for yourself because it's kind of easy. I want to comment on the code you run if you are logged in. Is this big enough, the font? Uh, or should I enlarge slightly? Let me see if I can find it. Ah, it's right here. Ah, okay. Then I can do it. 30. Ta-ta-ta. Okay. Is there any difference? Boo. Okay. What I do is this. Um, I do a select in which essentially I want to find all the information related to you. I want to fish out all the information on the user likes and all the information on the user stars. And I think you will have to add all the information on the user thumbs, right? In the homework assignment. So the point is this, I think I discussed it in one of the previous classes, I don't remember which one, but essentially I would like to do a join between two tables. So I want to get everything from the post table, and I also would like to take all the things in the user like table that have a post ID that is equal to the post ID, and that have a user that is equal to me. So this is called a join per se. The only catch is that I'm doing a left join. A left join, I cannot explain why it's a left and not right. The only way I can memorize it is by saying it's a left join because things can be left off, you know? But a left join here means that I'm gonna give you everything from this post table, but if there is no user like that you gave on that item, you're just returning none for those elements, but you're still returning to me the post, even though I didn't like it, okay? So that's the syntax. And essentially what you get here is a row object that has fields row.post.post title. So then it has row.userLike, row.userStar. So the format, when you do a join, this is one of the things I actually don't like about Web2Py. But when you do a join, the row has as subcomponents the tables, and as subcomponents the fields of the tables. If you instead do not do a join because you're not logged in and I just want to fish out all the posts, then the row has just the post title as content. You see, you look at how dishomogeneous it is. I don't like this, okay? But it wasn't my design decision. So if it's not a join, if you are doing a query on one table only because there is no possibility of confusion, the row has a post title attribute. If you join multiple tables, the post table, the user like table, and the user star table, the row, to access the post title, you need to say row.post.post title. Okay, so that's you know, hiccup. Okay, that's it. Not so much to do. But so what I'm doing in both cases, whether I'm logged in or not, is this. I'm building a list of results that is a list of dictionaries, and I'm building it the way I want. So I'm putting in it the post ID, the post title, the post content, the post author, and then like, which is a Boolean, which I build, you know, myself manually. Let's look at how I build it. And then the rating, which is an either none or a number between 1 and 5 that indicates how many stars I gave it, okay? And so I built it in this fashion. The like is equal to false if row user like ID is none. What I'm checking here is purely to check whether the row for the like exists. If the row for the like exists, it means I liked it. And so I say I put this like is equal to true. Otherwise, I put it equal to false, okay? And below, for the star rating, I do a similar thing. I say rating is none if a row user star ID is none. This means, you know, there is no record of me ever clicking on a star. Else, the rating is equal to the content of row user star rating, which is an integer, which corresponds to the star rating you gave it, okay? So what you have to do when you do the homework, the first installment is that I defined the thumb table for you already. You can go look in the tables. There is already a thumbs table defined ready for use. But you will need to add here the instructions to with its content so that you know whether you did not do anything or you thumbed up or you thumbed it down. Okay? Yeah. Would it be possible to represent a post class? And the answer is not easily, because here we are doing a dictionary because the response is going to be sent across in JSON. And if you, because you know, here we are in Python, preparing the response. But on the other hand, there is JavaScript reading this response. And the way to make the response go over the wire, so to say, is to translate it into JSON, which is the string representation of data that is common to the two languages. Now, there is a way, in truth, to serialize Python objects in JSON. And this is open the advertisement to use the world famous and unique JSON Plus, which is free and is due to the immense generosity of the two luminaries, Luca del Faro and Massimo Di Piero, roll of drums, end of the advertisement. Okay, and maybe other solutions as well. But you see, if you give to JSON an object that it does not know about, there are two versions of it. The normal JSON just chokes, explodes, and gives up, saying, you know, I don't know how to serialize that. And I think this response.json is kind enough not to complain, but it will not serialize it instead. Okay, there is a slight difference in behavior, I think. Okay, so but it won't work. Okay, because if you look at the specification, I mean, I can show you on the fly, right? And nothing is better than an example. So if I activate JSON again, I don't know, yeah, here I get it. Like if I do like what do I do? What is an easy class that exists already? I don't know. But, so class unicorn object. So this class unicorn has an def init. I hate defining things on the command line like this. But the init method says self.nice is equal nice, please, is equal to true. Okay, and self.x is equal to 3, because of course, right? And so this defines a class. Okay, so I can see C, is, I mean U, I guess. U is equal to a unicorn. And this defines a perfectly good unicorn. Now I can do JSON dumps of U, and this will throw us an error, right? That says something like, a class is none and in the what? Sorry. Raise type error. O is not JSON serializable. Okay, so the error is the understandable error is at the bottom. Main unicorn object is not JSON serializable, right? And so unless you do something more refined, this won't work. Okay, so JSON objects can be serialized via JavaScript objects can be serialized via JSON, but Python objects can't. Okay, great. Good. So I was at this point explaining how to fish the list of posts. I mean, the complications are only two. There is this complication of the left join, okay? And then there is you may want to read the documentation. I think I had included a pointer, but otherwise I can include it again. In one of the previous classes, I had a pointer to the book. And the other one is the idea that, you know, I'm building a dictionary, but in one case, if I do a join, I need to say row.table.field instead of just row.field. Okay, and you have to be careful about that. Okay, so those are the 2 points, but I build this list of dictionaries and I return it. And remember that I want to be homogeneous in my code, so I don't return a list. A list is perfectly JSON representable, but actually I always want to return a dictionary, so I'm never in doubt about the thing I do. And so I return a dictionary that has only one field that is called post list, and that contains the results. Okay, and because this is called post list, on the other end, when I read it, I will be able to say data.postList and assign it to myself who post list, okay? Because it's already cooked up in the right way. Essentially, this get JSON is kind enough not only to get the JSON, but also to decode it and put the decoded object into this data that then it calls me back with, right? It's a function that is very helpful. It's one of these shorthand functions. I think I have a pointer to the documentation at some point, or I put it in the resources for the Friday class, I think, actually. Okay. So questions on how I get the posts. We will get later to how I process them, okay? But questions on how to get the posts. Good. So let us look at how I implemented this happy phase. Let's look at the behavior 1 second. You see, when I go over it, it shows me the opposite state. And if I click it, I confirm it. And so there are kind of 3 steps logically. Sorry. One is how to display the state, then how to display the state when I hover, and then when I click on it, how to send back the information to the server. And actually the 4th step is how does the server do to record the new information. None of these steps is big or difficult, but you need to do them all, right? So let's look at it. So it's done here, okay? So this is the key span. Wait a moment. Did I do a typo in which I begin a span and then the div? I'm afraid so, right? No? And this is why I have these super weird problems. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Okay. So I hope this still works. In fact, it should work better. At some point, I had a weird bug, and maybe that's it. Okay, so it still works. Okay, and now this appears where I wanted it, actually. Ah, right. This, I don't know why it does that. Maybe that's why at some point I wrote div here, and I didn't close a div here. It's incredible how many bugs there are in these editors, right? I mean, you would assume that. Okay. Okay, fine. Whatever, it's not so important if it's div or span for the purpose of this. So this is the basic div. Okay. So I show it if it's logged in, and then I do the following. These v on, mouse over, mouse out, and click are called event handlers. So let me do a moment of pause to describe how events happen in JavaScript. They work as follows, really. Imagine the browsers that has tiled up the page by the various divs. So the page is divided internally in rectangles depending on what is laid out where. Okay, and you may have a big rectangle with a smaller rectangle in it. Visually, no, if these are rectangles, it's as if you have this smaller window and then there is this bigger window around it. Okay, so when you generate an event or when an event happens autonomously, it's generated in a certain point in the tree, and you can listen to that event at any level of ancestry in the tree. So, for example, if you click on a place here, and in fact, I think that this is my okay. Let me go to that later. But if you click on this eye icon, you can listen to the event either here or in any containing class and specify which action you want to take in response to that event. Okay, so you don't need to catch an event in the innermost possible visual element or in the innermost possible element of the DOM tree. You can catch it at any level, and when you catch it, you can do 2 things. You can process it and that's it, or you can process and say that the parent and quash it, so to prevent it from your parents in the tree from also processing it. Now, let's look here at what I'm doing. First of all, I'm doing the visual rendering. I'm doing E or I, as you read it. There are 2 classes, fa smilo or fa meho. I don't know how to pronounce it, fe meho or fe smilo, something like that, right? But so you either smile or you may. And this is driven by this v-if. This v-if is Go primitive that essentially says if what I'm gonna put into quotes is true, then this element is gonna exist. And if you put into those quotes is not true, then that element is not gonna exist. Okay, so you can essentially control the presence of elements on the web page with this if statement. Okay, so what I'm saying is this: if if post smile, so if the post smiles, then I say far smile all. Okay, and so I visualize a smile, and otherwise I visualize as a me. Not that this smile is different from the like I got from the server. So I'm keeping two things separate in my JavaScript. I'm keeping separated the status of my like and the status of the display, because these need to be different at times, right? When I hover on it, I mean, this one I didn't like it, I made it. But when I hover on it, I still want to have a faint smile, right? So I need to keep two things, the star value, sorry, the like value and the smile value. That coincide if I'm not hovering, but I will need to modify if I'm hovering. And then I built a logic that says, okay, maybe let me look at the logic later. So let me look first at this smile attribute and how I initialize it. Okay. Here, when I get the posts, I call this thing that processes them. Okay. And what I do is this. I say who set. So E is an element of that list, right? I could have called it post, but I'm mapping over the list of posts a function that on every element E, therefore E is a post, says who set E smile E like. This means add to each post an attribute that I call underscore smile and set it to the value E dot like. So at the beginning, the smile coincides with whether you liked the post or not. Now you may wonder, why do I do such a horrible thing? And so let me add a comment actually to that effect. If I do, the comment is above already, but let me reinforce it. If I do e dot smile is equal to the e dot like, then Vu won't see the changes to e dot smile. Remember that Vu has as its main job to keep in consistency the JavaScript with the screen. Okay. Unfortunately, to do that, Vu needs to be aware of what are the attributes of the objects that it needs to observe, so that it can essentially put some sort of watchdogs there or triggers, so that if the value of the attribute is changed, the Vu gets all worked up and decides what to change on the UI. Now, it turns out, and this URL contains more information, but it turns out that if you just assign a new field like this, e.underscore smile is equal to e like, then Vu is not able to attach a watchdog to it. Okay? And so, in order to do that, you have to use Vu set. Vu set is the way in which you can assign new watched attributes to objects, so that Vu is actually aware of them and can track changes. Okay. Notice also that as a purely my convention, I'm using underscores to denote the attributes I'm adding myself in the browser as compared to those that I receive from the server. That's just my convention that I use often, but is completely non-necessary. So at the beginning, what I do is that I say this: the smile is equal to the like. And now let's look at what I do when you interact with this icon. For example, let's look at what happens when I do the mouse over. When I do the mouse over, okay, this is an event that is triggered when you enter with the mouse the region of the element, right? And I call this function like mouse over, to which I pass the post index. Okay. So notice that this is very nice actually. In some previous framework that used for teaching, I could only call a function but not pass an argument. Here instead we can pass any argument to these functions that tie the rendering to Vu. So I'm saying call like mouse over. Like mouse over, sorry, like mouse over is defined here among the various functions. Okay. it is when this happens, this is actually the function that is called, and the function does something very simple. It says it fishes out the post, self vo post post index. Okay, so it takes the post out of the list, and then it says the values of the smile, now it's the complement of the value of the line. So that it essentially shows you the state this would have if you actually click the link. Okay? Now, okay. If you do a mouse out is the event that is generated when your mouse leaves a region. Okay, so on a mouse out, what I do is somewhat similar, is here. When you mouse out of the region, I set back the value of the smile to be equal to the value of the like. So that when you go out of the region, I show you again the current state and not what would happen if you clicked it. Okay? Now, the other method that I have here is click. When you click, I call like click. Okay? Now, what does like click have to do? It's actually a very simple function. Like click has to do two things. It has to record that the state is now toggled, okay, and it has to send the information back to the server, okay, and that's what it does. It says p like is equal to not p like. This toggles, the like value, and then it does a post to set like URL. I specify which post. I specify the new state, and that's it. Okay. So we will look in a moment at what do I do on the server side when I receive that the like value has changed. But is this more or less clear? I give these two values. One is the like value, which tells me the truth, and the other one is this smile value that tells me what the UI should say, right? And they coincide, but when I hover in, they are now complemented, and when I hover out, it's truthful again, okay? Now, the only catch is what is this gray color? Where does that faint gray color come from? And this is something that I added later, and I simply said, let's create a visual difference of whether the change you see in front of your eyes is actually confirmed or not, okay? And the way I did it is as follows. I decided if the like value coincides with the smile value, I want to be black. And if instead, if the like value is the opposite as the smile value because it's unconfirmed, I want it to be gray. But I'm not doing this via code per se. I'm doing this via CSS, and I'm saying this. So there is a way to say that you add a class depending on some conditions in Vue. And I'm essentially saying that I'm adding the class changed if post smile is different from post like. Yeah, that's what I do. I simply say it for both the smile and frowny. So I have a class changed if the two are different. So if I want to inspect the element, I wonder if I can do it this way, but yeah, inspect. No, I think it reduces to this. But right, I think it would be a little bit difficult. I don't know exactly how to add the hover. Wait a moment, the properties. Does anybody remember how to say that I'm hovering on these? I have to give a colon hover somewhere, but no. Sorry? No, I don't think it's here. No, I think I have to put it in properties somewhere, but let me not waste time, okay? I'll show you the animation in another moment, I guess. It's more efficient, okay? So So is this clear? I'm not describing how to get the list of likers. This is done by these two other controls. No, by a mouse over and mouse out. When you mouse over, we go fetch it, and when you mouse out, we'll remove it. But now I'm just focused on the animation of the face. Is this clear? Do you have questions so far? So essentially, I have these two bits of state, the like and the smile, and they control both of the styling according to whether they match or not. Okay, and they control, and they control what happens to them via the mouse over, mouse out, and click interactions, for which I specify the functions. Now, there are a few things that I need to do to sort of wrap up. Well, I can show you what do I do for changed. This is just very brief, but you see, if there is an icon changed, I define the color to be this unconfirmed color, which I define in my constants to be this gray. Okay, so that's where it's done. Okay, and another thing I do here is this. This is instead more sort of fundamental. It's something that I often do. See, here we are in a loop. And I need to do two things. This is the problem, okay? When I say that this, let's look at the click action, which is the most interesting. When I do a like click, I need to do two consequences on the other end, okay? One is that I need to modify the post itself, and the other one is that I need to send something back to the server. Now, this looks simple, but there is like a very annoying tiny catch. When I talk to the server, I need to use the post ID. No, this is the database ID of the post, because that's what the server understands. So the server thinks in terms of database tables. So to record a change in the like state, it needs the post ID. But I also need to modify the post object, right, in my list of posts. So if I just had, if instead of post index, I call this by post ID, I would have to write some very boring code in which I need to loop over my list of posts to find which one I'm talking about, which one has the right ID. Is this clear? It's a stupid annoyance, but it's an annoyance nevertheless, right? And so instead of having that stupid annoyance, I do the following. When I process my list of posts, in the process posts, when I get them from the server, I enumerate them. I assign an integer to each one of them. This is what my enumerate function is doing. It's filling this IDX field, underscore IDX field, for each and every post. So in the JavaScript, I can say, hey, you clicked on the post that has this index in my list of posts. Okay? And on the other end, when I receive that, I have a post index here, and I can just fish out the post that has that index in the list. I don't have to go fishing around or comparing all the post IDs with the ID you gave me. So unfortunately, I have two IDs between my feet. One is the index of the post in the list of posts, and the other one is instead the ID of the post in the database. And you need to keep them separate, right? They're just very different things. Okay? By the way, you can also examine these things in the browser. One of the things I should remember doing is writing code that breaks so that I can show you how you debug it. I should really do more of it next time. For the moment, let me not break the code actually, but I just want to show you. No, these bad requests are just for the icon. They're nothing important. So you remember that I told you, the great thing about these is that we have all everything accessible to us via app. Right, app.post list. No, app.view.post list. Okay, this is it, and I can examine it. There are 0, 1, 2, so it's an array with the 3 elements. I can look at the element number 1. It has an ID. You see, the ID is ID 2. I don't know why, evidently there was something in the database that at some point was deleted. But the thing that is in position 1 of the list is the post that has database ID 2. The like is equal to true. the post author, the post content, the post title, the rating is equal to null because I don't know, because because nobody has given us the rating to that yet. And then these are you see these are the getter and setter methods that are defined by Woo. So you look at them, you say, aha, they are there, and then you don't care particularly about them, okay? But they're there. And so you can go examine. So you see, this is why I claim that this idea of creating this object and assigning it to app makes the debugging easy. I can sort of look the state of everything. For example, if you wonder why does this post have two likes, I can say app boo, sorry, app boo, boo post list. And then I can look at the first element, which is the zeroth, of course. And this would display it to me, and I can say, the like is false, but the rating is 2. Okay, 2 corresponds to that 2, right? If you need to do debugging, it's easy. Now, if you do, let me just do a commit, so I don't. 1 second. If you make a mistake, or let's not make a stupid mistake. Let's make a subtle mistake a moment and try to see how to debug it. What could be a subtle mistake, for instance? That I mean, there are many, right? So that okay. So suppose I say the post index instead of the post ID. I don't know, just as one possible example. Okay. So how would you be able to look at what you're doing? If you click on sources, this shows you all the sources, and Chrome has become a little bit smarter. It used to be that you had to navigate all over the place to find out which was your main source, but now it's sort of showing it to you more by default. So let me reload the page, which reloads also these. Okay. What you can do is that you can set a breakpoint. Or in fact, it's even more interesting to set a breakpoint on the like mouse out. You are wondering what's happening during my mouse out. Is this code being run or not? So you set the breakpoint. Then you can do whatever you want. But when you do a mouse out, it stops there and it shows you the values of the variables. This is a bit. Hey, come on. Sorry, I cannot grab this divider line. Oh, okay. See, it tells me the post index is 0 and p is equal to this. Now I can run one line in the debugger, okay? And now p is a local variable, so I can examine its value. P has ID 3 and it has index 0, okay? So so I can see now what gets run. I can do one more step. This has finished running, so now I should be able to see that p smile is equal to p like. Okay, and indeed, like is false and smile is also false, right? And so you're able to follow your code, then you can remove the breakpoint and you can say continue running, okay? If you don't say continue running, you stay stuck there. Now, we introduced that other error, right? And so you can track it easily by setting a breakpoint here. Another thing that you can do in order to debug is the following. Imagine that I go there and then I click this. Okay. If you go in the network tab, this shows me that I did a post that failed. Okay. And if I click on it, it tells me the preview of the response, but it also tells me the headers. And if you go in the headers, so the request headers, hey, wait. Sorry. Okay, so I think you can. I'm sorry. It's at the very end, but post ID is 0 and like is equal to true. Okay, so I can trace those values. I'm sorry that this is so much at the bottom of the screen. Okay, and the response is not interesting in this case. But if I go then to the server, here I can see the trace of the error. This is the server trace of the error, and it is something like foreign key constraint failed. Okay. Now I haven't told you how I oh, and by the way, before you say that see that I'm doing a request for post ID is equal to 0 and like is equal to true. This is what I want to modify, right? It's the request that went in. Remember now the code contains an error, so I think the error is triggered by me referring to post ID 0, whereas there is no post 0. That is the problem. And so what is happening, just because it's the end of the class, I have to rewind, but maybe I leave it exactly like this so that next time I can start from here and show you better the server method and why it fails in this case. The problem is this. I defined the like table as follows. It points to the user email and the post ID. And the post ID needs to be a reference to a post. And this is the database way of telling me, hey, you cannot insert a like for a post that does not exist, right? When you define these references, they need to be obeyed in the database. Okay, I haven't said on delete set null. If I say on delete set null, but no, actually, I'm wrong. So in any case, when you define a reference, the reference has to exist. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a reference. Okay, so you cannot insert a like for a post that doesn't exist. The database won't let you, and so that's the error we see. Okay, so next time, yeah, we can look at the server implementation of this post method, and we go on from there, I guess. Okay, thank you.